So in those, all right, since we've jumped all the way to the 90s, which I was saying to Vince that...
I was going to try and keep it chronological.
No, I don't care.
It doesn't matter if we jump around. No, it doesn't matter.
We can go back and
talk
forth,
about that later.
But in the 90s, like, that was my favourite time of football. I loved Carlton Football Club. I used to walk around with my chest pumped out. We were doing everything. But there were a couple of years there. The 93, first of all. Now, I've spoken to a few players. There's a couple of questions, but the first one is, in 93, when Essendon beat Adelaide and they came back, and then they were going to play you in the grand final. Do you remember that?
I don't remember Essendon playing Adelaide in the preliminary final.
All right,
But
so
it was preliminary final.
Was it preliminary?
We were there, weren't we?
We'd already
made it.
We'd already beaten Adelaide at Waverley in the second semi.
Well, I've spoken to a few players, and they said, like, when they thought they were going to play Adelaide because they were up by so many, and then all of a sudden Essendon come back, and there was a little bit of a sinking feeling as supporters.
Because it was Essendon.
But also because of what they were capable of doing.
It was Essendon, but it was just a strange feeling. You were going in, half-time, we were going to play Adelaide, it was all happy, and then I actually fell asleep, woke up, and Essendon hit the front, and I had this sinking feeling. I don't know why.
No, I can't.
Yeah, so you can't do that.
Only you can answer that. No, I didn't have a sinking feeling. We were playing Essendon. I was really confident because they were a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
And they belted us. And
Yeah,
they were the most deserved final of all time. It lives in my memory as my worst moment in footy, but it happened, and we couldn't do anything about it. You know?
All right, then tell me someone, Peter Dean, that year, you had to tell him he couldn't play in the grand final. And I know that he was kind of injured and he was trying to get back. Do you remember that?
Yeah, no, I don't remember specifically Peter, because I loved Peter as a player. He was one of my great supports, and I still see a fair bit of Peter. He was up in northeast.
Well, he was saying how that he put a note under your door to say that
he was right to go.
He was right to go, yeah.
He lived around the corner from me in Foot Street.
And then you went to see him?
And I did, I think,
Yeah. He reckons it was one of his worst moments.
No, I'd forgotten about that. Well, you try and forget those things when they're negative, because Peter was such a...
He was important.
Important that he was just so consistent.
Yeah.
He prepared so well.
Yeah.
He never missed a beat, never took a shortcut, and was always dependable in the toughest moments. Pete was, he should be remembered as one of the great players of the club because he played for so long at such a high level. I remember recruiting him from Bendigo. This game, his parents, he had a lovely and a brother that played it too. And
back around 83, 84.
Yeah, no, that's hard when you've had them and they've been good for you early, as Peter was for 10 years, and then you have to obliterate their career in some stage at a point where they think they're up to it and we don't.
But in the end, he ended up playing in the 95,
it
was all happy.
Good. But I actually remember there was the training just before the grand final, that last training session, and he was running around, and there must have been 10,000 people there.
The crowd was all cheering.
And every time he touched the ball, the crowd would absolutely go, because we really wanted him out there, you know. So
he'd come back from a very serious injury. He must have had doubts about whether he was fit or whether he was...
Can't remember. Too many.
Doesn't
one injury among 10,000.
Yeah, of course.
But then we get to 94, and I think we had a pretty good year there. And then we had those two finals.
Yeah, of course.
And we went out straight sets.
Unexpectedly lost the first final to Melbourne when we finished second on the ladder and they finished seventh. Because back in those days it was first played eighth and second played
and
seventh.
And then we're going to play Geelong, correct?
And then the week after, because we'd lost to Melbourne, we had to play the semi-final against Geelong. You remember how they had those three withdrawals before the game? Couch, Bairstow and Hodge?
Three of their best players didn't play.
Did that make a difference in their mindset,
do
think?
Do you reckon our players
jump in their sleep? What would you think?
No, as far as Carlton
players. What do you think?
I think maybe it would have a
positive effect for us in that they've lost three of their best players.
Yes.
Yeah, and a negative effect on them that they've lost.
Yes.
Yeah, and it worked exactly the opposite way.
Yes.
Yeah, the psychology of that you might understand.
No, I don't know.
You're asking me about the psychology. You're asking me.
What about the coach? Did you have like a?
No, well, I don't. You have to ask the players how I responded, etc. No, it's the worst loss.
Well, as a supporter, I felt like we've got a better chance now. Like I was thinking, oh, this is great, you know.
Well, we didn't find out until the teams.
Only just before.
Yeah, we
found
found
out,
that
so
like we were at the
It was
ground.
literally half an hour before the game
And
started.
you haven't got time to
Time to
readjust your
adjust,
thinking.
Yeah.
Oh, but your time to
I think they announced it right on the deadline
They did.
when you're able to make changes.
Yeah, no, I think that's
And
true.
so the rumours were hovering around at the time, but I don't know whether that makes the other players complacent or not. I mean, I don't see why it should make them complacent.
Because they're all got
Geelong still had a lot of very good players on the ground. I mean, Ablett was on fire that day.
Yeah. I just
Even
think-
their replacements, guys like that Aaron Lord, came in and played a great game.
I just think as a supporter, when I'm looking at it, if I see a couple of players out, you always feel a bit more confident that...
Don't forget, we
you're
had
better.
Bradley out. Bradley did not
Yeah.
play in the finals due to injury,
That's
No.
and that was a really severe blow to us.
Very important, you're right.
So
Very
90,
severe.
when you get into 95, at the start of that year, what are you
That's
and
more to the point, isn't
the
it?
team are thinking then all of a sudden? Is
Lost
it your
93.
last chance?
No, I've answered that question by saying what we did in the
You did that,
in
yeah.
the leadership stuff was done,
Yeah.
and that
With
changed.
Anthony Stewart.
With Anthony Stewart,
Yeah.
we bought somebody that we've never done anything like that in the
Yeah.
footy club
Yeah.
before, and there's no doubt when we look back now, and we wasn't sure at the time. We look back now.
It was a
it's,
masterstroke, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
well, it was a masterstroke, but it was the right thing,
Mm.
and he was the right person for that place at that time.
But that group were ready to
Yeah,
do
the
that.
players would
wasn't
have said about Laurie Hayden too. That
Mm.
when he came in '79, I think he was there in '79. I think he was there, Laurie Hayden, '79, '80, '81.
it? Mhm.
That his thinking and leadership in that psychological part was significant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And had it made a difference to that team at that time, then, but
Mm.
I didn't see it the same way a few years later.
Isn't it funny how things work out? In your very first year at Carlton, you get a couple of boom recruits that really injected some life into the team. And I'm talking about Kenny Hunter and Peter Bazzasto from Western Australia. There was probably one or two others as well that came at that time. I think Greg Wells might have come from Melbourne and that sort of thing. But
81, he did.
he played in the 81 grand final.
Yeah, no, he did. That was his only year, wasn't he? Was he
Was
there
he
for a year
over
before?
80? I think he might have played 1980 as well.
Did he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway,
no, that's a good point. Yeah,
Um,
he had been there for a year.
But nevertheless, those two were the boom recruits that everyone was talking about. Yeah, that must have been a big bonus to have those two come across.
Yeah,
and
they
yet
come-
in '85, when you were expecting these blokes like Kernahan and Bradley and
got
Motley
the
and
arse,
all them, all of a sudden you find yourself coaching Fitzroy. What was it like in '81 when those two blokes came across?
Well, I knew very little about them, to be quite truthful. When I saw Kenny walk through the door, I said, "They're joking. You can't be at 5 foot."
Yeah, he's about 65 kilos, ringing wet, isn't he?
6'1". And
So you knew nothing about Kenny, or not much about him at all?
No, because he came the same day. He was recruited before. I had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
So he was already in All Australia.
Had a
that's
lot
right.
to do with the recruitment of the others, which I never got a chance to coach in the
Yeah.
first.
I see, because
But
he had to play back there, and so he spent a year there while he was...
Yeah.
And then he reckons he spent... he did too, yeah. 79, did he sit in the stands?
Kenny Hunter.
Yeah.
Could have done that.
Yeah, anyway, yeah. So you get those two recruits
And
on
they-
top
and
of
they
a
were-
great
they were the
side.
opposite ends of the continuum in terms of personality and
Yeah.
it's quite funny. Isn't it?
Yeah, well, Bazzasto started like a house on fire, and but then slowly started to deteriorate a little bit towards it. I mean, he only played 3 years at Carlton, but
they worked him out a bit.
they worked him out a little bit.
The
didn't
opposition worked him out a bit, and Pete sadly never learnt to work hard, so he was a badly prepared player in terms of his fitness.
Now, tell me honestly, was he the last player you apparently used to ring all the players on a Friday night before
Yeah, I did.
the Saturday game? Was he the last one on your list because
Well, I
he was
used to-
coming back from Mooney Valley?
He lived with what's his name? He lived with
Who
he's
did
the
he live
famous
with?
bloke, the famous bloke where Fitzy lived with, etc. He was on the door.
Not Leo Brooks.
Yeah,
is
Leo
it?
Brooks.
Leo
he,
Brooks.
he lived at Leo Brooks, and Leo
Yeah.
would ring me at. I had 2 phones going, and Leo would ring me on one of them and say he won't be home till 9:15. Don't ring before that. So Leo looked after him pretty well, and Fitzy always lived at his place. He was very good. Buzz was, and I'm close to Buzz now. We've had a lot to do over the last last 3 or 4 years when he's been battling with cancer, etc., and his financial problems, as you know.
Yep.
So you know all about it. So it's been a and he's been really good to me. He's been very thoughtful in a way that I didn't think Bazasto ever would. Because I sacked him, or I reckon in the first year I probably sacked him 4 times. So.
Did you?
So, and he'd give up, and I'd give it to him, so he'd walk out in front of all the players, I'd do a business, I'd say, I'll be back in an hour, maybe tomorrow night. You might, if you're lucky, coach, you might see him Thursday. You know. They all know, and sure enough, he'd come back in, I'd say, well,
do the work.
You apologise to me, yeah, well, you go and apologise to your teammate. Oh, yeah, well, you're not coming back, you go and apologise to your teammate. So. A lot of times the Buzz had to go in a race, we pull the team together. Buzz had to stand there and apologise for his behaviour. It's a joke, didn't they? They all pissed themselves laughing.
Yeah, they knew what was coming.
Yeah, well, that's...
With those phone calls, you used to call the players every Friday. What did you used to tell them? What was the conversation?
I know, it was always about the roles, etc., that they would play.
Oh, yes.
That was the fitness advisor at that time.
Peter Shockman.
Hang on,
He's a legend.
We're in the... Pete, we're doing an interview with the Carlton group here, and your name came up on the screen, so I had to say hello to you. You're on camera now without knowing it, talking to me, but we're doing a show. Can I give you a call when we finish? My kind invitation. Oh, you're coming? You're coming? Yeah, you'll do anything for a free meal. See ya. See ya. Bye.
He's a lovely guy too.
Yeah, he's struggling there. No, Pete was so different to the kind of personalities that did those roles. Fitness advisor, yell and scream.
Yeah.
Pete's just a quiet...
Very gentle man.
That's the word.
Yeah, so those calls?
Yeah, well, I ran every player every Friday night to give them their specific role.
That's what you do, yeah.
Any instructions and
who
you're playing on and all that?
Oh yeah, that's the reason we did Friday night, because that time we had an opposition team, so Thursday night we could give them the team and what we generally wanted to do, but Friday night was a follow-up to give them a specific role.
Did you do that through your whole coaching career?
Yeah.
Even in 95?
Yeah.
So 95 you'd still do it, yeah?
No, it's just part of my...
So at least you had something to do. You
it sounded like you didn't have much to do.
You weren't going to leave it up to the players to decide who they were playing on.
No, it's interesting. Yeah.
We had some good players in that.
Actually, the other part of it that would have taken you a lot longer is the post-match reviews and summaries and letters and basically a report card for every player after every match. It would have taken so long to do, wouldn't it?
Have you got the book? Have you got my book?
No.
You haven't got a copy?
No.
I think I've got 2 left. I'll give you both one. But you're reading that. I've put all the...
Thank you very much.
In retrospects in. I mean, I took...
I'll let you know when the auction's on.
I'm only
kidding. No, I would never sell it.
I haven't sold one either. It was a joy to go back really over a long period of time.
You showed me. You didn't.
Did I? Yeah. Was interesting for me to revisit the incidents and stories like we've talked about today to find out what was the truth and what wasn't. Because as you get older, you're forgetful and things change and you've got different views of the world. And it's been fascinating for me to talk to players, a lot of them whom I hadn't seen, even players like Matt Rendell at Fitzroy and people like that I had virtually no relationship with all, who made sure that I was sacked and lost my job. But to even come back and talk with them about the circumstances and whether this was right in the book or not, because I was going to write it, and they all contributed. They were all really honest. The Carlton people, both on and off the field, were really very open and very honest. Where I'd hurt them and or whether I'd lifted them, or it was really mind-blowing for me after all these years to go back and revisit those circumstances and how did they remember them. We talked about Peter Dean and Whitey, people like that I was going to write about, etc. The sort of incidents you were talking about. Yeah. And I needed to make sure that if I went out, it was only going to people I knew and Carlton people, etc. But needed to be correct. So you can't do it. So it's it is. interesting looking back because the people, and you two would know better, the people that made that place so successful and such a vital organisation in the early 80s
Yep.
were significantly different. I mean, not different in makeup and personality, but significantly different in name and role that they played. What's that? 10 or 15 years later.
15 years.
If you look at it, it's amazing how football clubs, and Carlton's like anybody else, that they have a total change of not only player who's over 10 years, of course you're going to get an enormous change of player, but enormous change in support staff for the players and the administration and organisation of the club. It's a fact of life, and you probably, to be successful, you probably need that. The same people stay, it starts to wind down a bit. You really need to re-energise it with people who are passionate and have something to offer.
You need renewal, don't you?
Really,
otherwise people can get a bit stale after a few years.
Even Big Jack Elliott.
Yeah, well,
his biggest crime was not recognising the time to pass the baton down, really. Otherwise, he could have, if he... I maintain, I mean, he was ended up being booted out at the end of 2002. If 5 years earlier he had have recognised that, okay, our window's closed here, we need to rebuild this team a bit, time for me to go as well, pass the baton down to someone else, he would have been glorified as one of the greatest presidents of all time.
I still think
and he probably still is,
but
it wouldn't have had such a sour ending.
Yeah.
Which is what
a lot of leaders don't
I'm with
that,
I'm with you. Because in the finish it's contaminated.
Yeah.
The finish contaminated a lot of the great
work he
did in the finish. And John was a fantastic. As I tried to explain before, I don't know whether I did clear or not, but he was a fantastic president for me when we got it.
Yeah, he was.
As to what his role was and my role was. And I remember going back to be re-employed and going out, I probably told you the story, but going back to Toorak and visiting his house. And he went in, having sacked me before and 5 years had gone by, he's gone up and said, how would you like to coach Carlton again? You know, not come and do an interview or something talk about it. And I said, sounds a pretty good idea to me.
He said to you, when he said to you the first time, he said that, I'll call you.
Oh, well, did I tell you? I don't
know. You've said it before, where at the end of 85 when they did the swap with Wolsey.
Well, he appointed me on the Monday. He pulled me on the Monday. I met the board on the Monday. They appointed me on the Monday, and I guess it was Wes and Colo and John. Sacked me on the Thursday. So I got 4 days as the coach and I got sacked. And for all the right reasons, because Robert Walls had become available and that he was he'd done an extremely good job with what he had at Fitzroy. And it was the right decision. It just burnt me, because I was. You were looking forward to getting all those players from South Australia. I knew they were all coming. Yeah, exactly. You had a lot to do with getting them across, as a matter of fact. All of them. We could.
Tell me something. In 86 and 87, then you watch Carlton playing a grand final, then win a grand final. How do you feel?
And then prelim the year after that.
I would, because I'm.
Is there a little bit of like that
could have been. You can't live your life that way. No.
You were happy?
Yeah. I was happy. I was happy that Fitzroy gave me a chance, and we did very well in the first year. The second year wasn't so good. No, I'd actually appointed coach of West Coast Eagles and didn't take it on, which was the silliest thing I did.
That's right.
So no, because once you're part of the place, it doesn't matter who's coaching them now, or
you weren't hurt that they sacked you.
No, I was very hurt at the time, but I'd had 5 years. 5 years.
Did you feel, looking back, that, and you may not have realised at the time, but that your time at Carlton by the end of 85 should have been up because we were just sort of stagnating in and around the top 5 in those days? We won 2 premierships, but then went, 5th and 4th and 5th again? Or did you feel like, because of these players coming in, I still want to be here?
I can't really be trying to truth, but I would have been feeling all those things. There's a chance. I'd worked very hard to recruit all those players. I travelled a lot and got them on side, and I think they were looking forward to having me as their coach.
They were?
So...
I can tell you that they were.
That's footy.
Footy,
We're talking about an institution that nobody... You think you understand, you think you understand.
No.
None of us understand. Because but in a way, what happened yesterday won't happen tomorrow, and year down the track is going to be totally different thing.
I guess where I'm coming from is this. if hypothetically Wolsey had a stayed at Fitzroy where he'd been for the previous, 8 years, and you had a stayed at Carlton where you were entering your 6th, would the results of both Carlton finishing in a grand final and Fitzroy finishing 3rd and almost making a grand final?
You can't talk about hypotheticals like that. That's pathetic. I didn't think you were like that.
That's right. How can you?
I guess I have never look at it. I was demolished as a person at the end of Fitzroy,
right?
Because
were you feeling burnt out by that stage?
Oh, I'd have been burnt out, because the older players they've been so fantastic for Robert, and they were fantastic for me early.
Yeah.
But they were losing it, and I was dropping them, and they got together and made sure that and I would have been one of them doing it to me had it been reversed. Yeah. So I understand how the system works, and
so by the end of '88, your time was done there.
Yeah.
So when
it was done by '87, and that's where I was offered the job. I was offered the job in Perth for the West Coast Eagles.
But loyal,
Well, I had a contract, and I said yes, and I was going to break the contract. Said yes, and it was all DT'd up, contract in place to go across to the Eagles.
Yeah.
And I just felt guilty, so I had a contract to go, and I think at that stage Fitzroy were hoping that I'd stay. I think they changed their mind 12 months later, but they were hoping I'd stay. So it just was one of those decisions that you make for maybe the right, maybe the wrong reasons. I'm not sure.
So by the end of '90, Jack says, "Would you like to coach Carlton again?"
Yeah, no, and I went around. The story's well known, but I went. He rang me up and said, "Meet at." If I'm repeating myself, tell me. But meet me at 2 Towers Avenue, Toorak. I'll never forget.
Yeah.
And so I went round there and rang the doorbell on the gate, because the gate was locked.
Was this the one where you slipped over or something?
Yeah, and I opened up. It was raining, pissing rain. I couldn't get through the gate. And there's a steep driveway down to the garage and then round to the house. I'll never forget it. And I stepped on the... Finally got through. Somebody opened the gate for me. I finally got through. John's standing in the shelter in the front door. He's underneath the... He's not getting wet. I'm soaked. And I stepped through onto the marble... white stone marble, it was driveway. Whoosh, I've taken off down the street, land on the back of my head, split me up. I had 3 stitches in the back of my head later on, bled everywhere, bled all over the joint.
Yeah.
And when I got round to the door, John says, "What are you doing?" I said, "That bloody driveway, John, you could at least tell me it was wet, it's dangerous." He said, shows what happens when you wear cheap rubber-soled shoes. That's all I got out of it. So he went in and he said, "Well, I know this is how it went." No one would believe this, but he said, "Well, what do you want to know?" I said, "Well, how good are you?" He said, "Well, that group of blokes who were fantastic for you." He said, "And for Robert," he said, "they're done. You're going to have to get rid of them all." I said, "Oh, that'll be a pleasant job to say all the blokes that won premierships have for him." He said, "Well, they've all got to go." I said, "Oh, Jesus." So I said, this is a rebuild, John, isn't it?" "Oh, no." He said, "It's not a rebuild. It's a massive renovation." So I said, "Well, given that it's a massive renovation, John, then how long do you think it'll take?" He said, "Well, if you're real good, you might do it in 3, probably 4, but it might even take you 5 years." And I said, "Well, John, if you're willing to contract me for 5 years, if you're willing to contract for 5 years, I'll take it on." And we shook hands there.
So this is in '90, so he was spot on.
At the end of 1990. So
we got there in 3 years against Essendon, and they smashed us. We got there again, as we talked about, in '94, and fell out, and then won it in '95. So give John his due as to people who think he knew nothing about the game. He had a reasonable feel for the
He had a feel, and he loved the club, didn't he?
Yeah, but he was right. I mean, that was the end of, Wayne Johnston, Kenny Hunter, David Glasgow.
Just take them all.
Yeah, that's right.
Wasn't much fun.
Wouldn't have been much fun at all. But, I mean, they probably even recognised at their time.
David Rees-Jones.
David Rees-Jones didn't retire until the end of '92.
Didn't he? '92?
Yeah. A couple of years, yeah.
But
yeah,
in fact, that was the only year that both he and Greg Williams played in the same team.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, that was quite a difficult...
And they did not like each other, let me tell you. Oh, you would have known that.
Yeah, no,
I've got to adjust this blind. Keep going.
Well, you had a couple of big captains in your... Like, there was Mike Fitzpatrick.
Better.
And Sticks Kernahan, which I rate the greatest captain to ever play the game. apart from you in your Hawthorn days, right?
No, come on, Rocco, you've never said that
You let pimples on your tongue.
in your life. That's right.
But Sticks, like I thought, because I grew up watching Sticks. How good of a leader was Sticks? Like on the field, like I always say, when he went on the field, like he demanded that ball, you know.
Well, it's a good comment, but if you go across all clubs, and the clubs are right
Of
coached,
course.
they don't make, like the Don Scotts, they don't make
No.
captains, they just evolve over time.
Yeah.
And we've been lucky, you've known to Fitzy
Yeah.
at the start. He was just the right coach for, right
Do
captain
you want to
for
have a
that,
look at that?
for that club at that time. I'll just call. He was outstanding for that group at that time. Totally different to the rest of the population. Fitzy would be wanting to continue, and his mates, and
Yeah.
you know Michael now, he's an absolute academic,
Yeah.
great mindset. But he was the right bloke for that club at that time and did a phenomenal job. Really did a phenomenal job. I didn't know him, and he wrote the Fitzpatrick Diaries, which you may or may not have read, but I read them and he gave them to me. Unfortunately, he did it all the way through September, and he started to release it on the first Monday in the grand final week. Total inside view of what we've done. This is 1991, a total inside view of everything, all our tacticals. Do you want to read it sometime? It's
In 81, you said?
In 81,
Wow.
he wrote these diaries, they're called the Fitzpatrick Diaries. I've got them. And he gave them to me. He said, I'm going to release this during the week, you know, on the Monday after we train. Or it might have been the Friday or Saturday or something like the previous week. And I sat up all night. I was riveted. He diarised everything that we'd said and done and went to play it the way. I said, Mike, they can't release this. I said, no, it's already through. It's done. They've got it. It's going I said, but we had a massive. You're going to undermine our capacity to win the premiership. People are going to see and have insights that they should never have seen. Went ahead. Didn't make any difference, as it turns out. But
No. That's
Fitzy would do that. I still to this day.
Wow. Tell me, he was already captain in 1980, wasn't he? Taking over from Jesselenko?
He was captain in
1980 under Percy?
Yes, he was. Yeah.
He wasn't made captain in your first year? No. That's right. He was
He would
already
be
the captain.
captain. He was in England doing his, wasn't he? Doing
Yeah.
his,
Rhodes Scholar, wasn't
Rhodes
he?
Scholar.
Rhodes Scholarship.
Yeah, so different. So they're different. Scotty, totally different personality. They played to Fitzy. They played against each other. Fitzy, as we now understand, a unique person in the game. Stephen Kernahan, I would agree, probably of all the, I think Scotty in one sense, but Scotty was unpredictable, etc., and a totally different personality. He was really about bringing the group. He didn't see his role about bringing the group together and doing those sort of things. Whereas Stephen was unbelievable. I tell you a story. One night I used to go around and lock up, throw all the, in retrospect, take them away so they wouldn't end up in the bin, and the cleaner would put them in the press or something. I'd go around, clean up, and turn all the lights off. And I went up the stairs and I turned the lights off to the gym. Stephen Kernahan, Sticks. I walk around the corner, and Sticks is sitting on the back of the bench press with his head. See, on the other end of the bench press, the bench was Mark Porter.
Yeah, I'm a Mark Porter, number 11, yeah.
Beautiful man, Mark Porter. Saw him in...
Just recently you were telling me you caught up with him.
In the main street of, he was with an Essendon player too, I didn't like that too, that's weird. The main street of,
Anyway.
up the bush there. Anyway, and they'd been there, I reckon, and Mark was struggling to get a game and keep his place in the team, and everybody loved him. He was just came from the Kiewa Valley.
Yep.
And he still is a beautiful bloke. Anyway, Sticks had that capacity. He would give time of himself. Didn't matter whether you're a big noter and a current player or you're a recruit coming into the place and needed some direction and support. He was the best people person I have ever had the privilege of working with, and he's been struggling of late lots of reasons, and it's lovely to catch up with him reasonably regularly. And Stephen hasn't changed at all. He's just a really decent man, interested in the welfare of others more always than interested in his own welfare.
That's all made him a great leader then.
Yes, he was as good as I had. So you're right
I love
in
him.
claiming.
All the other boys just said, this is the bloke we want to go to war with.
Yeah, well, that's a good.
Really?
That's a good.
If you ever want to go to war with someone, it's Stephen Kernahan.
It's way good.
I felt so good as a supporter when he ran out in front of everyone.
He got them all
and
behind him. He was a great captain from that point of view. It was always, come on boys, let's do this together.
Yes, no.
So there was another play there you picked up in '92.
Greg Williams. Is that who you're talking about?
Greg.
Yeah, well, '92.
Well, there's a couple of others.
Yeah, no, there's a couple, but I think Diesel was the big one. How?
Well, he didn't play the first 9 games because of a suspension or something, wasn't it?
Carlton, wasn't it?
Or was it his knee?
No,
I reckon it was suspension. That was the
Oh,
last.
suspension was the last one when he touched
the
the
last
umpire.
9 games. Yeah. But when he came on,
well, what's funny? Well, Diesel, you wouldn't have noticed, but Diesel came in 81, 82. Came down twice from Bendigo.
Yep.
They said he wasn't good enough.
Well, I said he was too fat, too slow, and not good enough. Sent him home twice. Never forgave me. He was strong enough in his belief to contact. He contacted
Hafey?
directly Tom Hafey at Geelong and went down and played there, won a best and fairest. The rest is history.
Yeah.
But he ended up. You imagine me then being in a position to try and convince him to come back from Sydney to Carlton.
Yeah.
The last person he would want to play for, I can tell you now, if you interview Greg now, if Greg says he's the last person he would have played for with me.
Yeah.
So it was a long struggle, and the lovely thing about it, I can tell Carlton people, is that Greg and I are really good mates.
Yeah.
Finally, and he's doing a terrific job. His understanding of the work, and I'd have to thank him publicly here. One of the reasons that the current coach of the Hawthorn Football Club became such a good player is that in his spare time, Greg spent a fair bit of time
Mitchell,
with Sam Mitchell,
Mitchell,
helping him in the same body shape, etc.
Very good.
In my time in footy, the two most inappropriately built players to play our game, can't run outside in the dark night, shortened from those two, and that they end up being almost similar in their ability to impact the game. And I can't think of anybody else of that shape and size in my 50 or 60 years in the game who's been able to do that.
And get the ball so, mate.
And make a decision on both sides of their body. So Greg has been he was a terrific asset, and he's now developed they say personnel, he's had a personnel at the time, but he's developed a communication skill set. So he's influencing the thinking of the club off the field in a strong and positive way, I believe. I'm not sitting on the minute, and he's now affecting the specific development of a number of players on field. He's doing the weakness work that they have in certain areas that Greg has got the capacity to teach, like very few people I know.
So he's like a football director on the board, but he's also a skills coach.
Well, he's in that between now. He kind of joins both together.
Well, I mean, it's a good, probably. I think his communication skills have got better and better.
Yeah.
And I think his ability to communicate directly to the board what is going on, his ability to influence the life of these young players who know of his capacities as a genuine AFL footballer, or VFL football player. I think he's and I would, to be truthful, I wouldn't have thought that the current circumstance which we're in would have ever eventuated.
Yeah.
You'd ask me.
There's
I
another
can tell you
player.
he's also quite witty and can tell a good story at a function
And he knows.
too. These days he's developed this personality where he actually makes a lot of people laugh.
And he remembers his stats.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
every single stat.
Well, he says, he went to Geelong and, he struggled in his first game. He only got about 43 possessions.
Now, there was another player. These are all, I'm going to name you all the players I love those years.
Okay,
right?
go on.
Cooter. So,
Yeah, no, Cooter, well, yeah, Cooter.
How good?
Cooter ended up being, he was an athlete who couldn't play. He's a great athlete. Cooter, we're good, he rings, and we've got a good working relationship now, but Cooter was an athlete, probably should have gone off and represented Australia as a decathlete.
And he could have done that too.
Probably could have been gold medalist.
Oh,
in the
yeah, he could
Olympics.
have. You know, there's no doubt he has the capacity. So we're lucky to get him. He and he just didn't have a great feel for the game at all. He was an athlete playing footy, and it was other people, too, Barry Mitchell and a number of other people.
He actually mentioned Barry.
Did he mention it? Yeah, well, there were a couple of coaches, not me. He would have condemned me because I gave up.
No.
Well, that's okay because I understand.
I can tell you he speaks very highly of David Parkin.
But we've had a good working relationship with the other part of his life because I helped him develop the off-field stuff that he was struggling at. But he struggled to get in. It was only the belief of a couple of other coaches that I was working with. Cole Kinnear had a great belief in him. Barry Mitchell had a great belief in him. There was another coach.
Well, it was the guy who took over from you. Wayne Britton.
Oh, Brits.
And he loves Britain.
Oh, Brits had a great work. Well, he's the bloke who was most influenced. So we were lucky in the finish to get a wonderful athlete to become a very, very competent footballer. And he was, as you say. I mean, if you want to watch a person play, I can't think of anybody else
They could play every position.
Yeah, but do things that other people run around and pick up the ball on the wing at Waverley one hand.
I know. Yeah.
Well, that's
he became the prototype player, didn't he?
I mean, no, that's true.
In
he was almost like
the 99 grand final.
99 grand final.
Sorry, the 99
preliminary.
That's more important that we forget about the grand final.
Yeah.
He gets moved into the middle there.
He was hanging out for you to make that move, but he never had the guts to ask for it.
No, that's
what made you decide to put him in the middle? Because it was a master stroke?
No, it wasn't. Well, it was master stroke. Be one of the other assistant coaches. I didn't have the same.
Take credit for him, I'm trying to give you some credit.
I didn't have the same. I probably didn't have the same belief or confidence in him that.
He changed the game, didn't he?
He won the game. Yeah,
he won the game. Yeah.
No doubt about it. It was as good a individual influence on the game as I can remember.
Yeah, you got excited in the box too, I remember.
Well, there was another game where you actually made a move with Kurtafidis that won a game, which not a lot of people make a big deal about as much as the 99 preliminary final. And I'm talking about our premiership year of 95. In that first final against Robert Walls's Brisbane Bears, who had scraped into the final 8 and looked like they might have been the best team going around other than ourselves at the time. They really took it up to us. We didn't beat them by much, but it was the move to put Kuda at full forward that ended up winning the game.
Yeah, I don't remember it, no.
Another one you're going to give to the assistant coaches?
Yeah, no.
I'll tell you now, that was another big move.
It was a great move because it did win the game.
I don't remember that, no, to be truthful. But
that was Robert Walls's last game as coach of Brisbane Bears.
They were as good a competitor as we had in the final series.
Because after that, we smashed North Melbourne in the semi, and
we were more concerned.
And
Brisbane
obviously, really smashed Geelong in the grand final as well. Brisbane were arguably the best team other than ourselves going around at the time.
In that 95 half time, were you relaxed? Do you remember?
No, I remember only because people have told me. I never relaxed. I got started the last quarter. And,
the end of the third quarter,
we kicked a goal or something.
Miles
in the
last
quarter, and I just said to Roddy, get out the cigars, light them up, have a smoke.
Yeah.
and enjoy watching your team play. And Cole Kinnear hit me, I'll never forget it. He actually whacked me across with a forearm and said, you've got a job to do and continue to do it.
So, even they were like...
Did it irk you that Geelong kicked the last 5 goals of the game?
I didn't even know. I couldn't have told you that. No,
well, they did. They went from 90 points down to 60 points.
I don't think we all cared. We were all
no one cared. At that stage, we were all celebrating. I think the players had checked out by that stage, just about.
Well, you can't, if you know you can't lose.
They put up a fantastic 3.5 quarters up until then.
Yeah. So there's now then with Wayne Britton, then you do that kind of
the succession plan.
The succession plan. Now, actually, Kuda said he was probably one of the best coaches he felt that was most influential to him. And a lot of people have said, even though he never played like AFL level, a lot of people say he was a really good coach. Like, how good was he?
In terms of understanding the game and being able to coach the game, he's the best I've ever met.
Yeah.
Bar none.
Do you not?
But that job's not just a coach. That's the problem. That job is representing the club and the institution.
Yes.
And they, all they could see what was not happening in that regard. The club in the finish. I mean, he won the right to do it because from 96-7 when he came 1997 when he arrived. I can't remember.
Yeah.
He took over and did all. I wasn't coaching at all.
Yeah.
So I was just there to do what Vossi was doing. It's just. He was extremely good, but when the role demanded him to become the leader of the club, which means television, radio, sponsors, and all that sort of thing, Wayne didn't want to do it. He'd tell you.
And you need to do that.
But also, he would have been managing other assistants as well. And at the time, he had, in fact, even in your last year or two, you had Ross Lyon, John Morsfold, guys like that. Is that where some of these assistant coaches should remain in that role rather than going to senior coach level? They can't quite grasp the managing other people scenario?
Good question, Vince. You can't just categorise across the board. Every individual that comes through those particular roles, sadly, you don't really find out until such time as they're given the role. And they come in and 2 years later, maybe the Essendon bloke now comes in for 2 years later. We think the potential he's shown is he's going to be good at this, and for whatever reason he fails. So the two jobs are totally different. And you hope that the personal and professional characteristics that they've shown, and I would not have picked either Johnny Worsfold or Rossi Lyon to become necessarily premiership coaches. I wouldn't have. I thought the capacities they had, or the talents they have, etc., balanced by the deficiencies they might have had, there was no guarantee at all that they would become, what's called competent AFL coaches, because the role is totally different. Yep. And I think at least we've worked out now that in appointing Vossi, that we've got a leader, we understand who we've got. He is a leader of the club. He represents the footy playing side, but he does represent the club. And that he then, because the job is such a massive job, he then we were still working that out in the middle. In the early middle 90s, we were still working that concept out. And some clubs have done it better than others. Some coaches have done it better than others. Some have held on to the reins and gone under on the basis they couldn't delegate the role to other people. So it's a massive, in the Australian society now, there are very few roles, I think I said at the start, very few roles that would demand as much as an AFL coach. And if you don't surround yourself with competent people, probably at least, I can think of at least half a dozen competent people, then you're going to go under. It
must be the most, I guess, contentious issue when clubs decide to put on a so-called untried coach, as in senior coach. Obviously, they've had time as an assistant. It's a matter of, have they got the capacity to go that next level, delegate to assistants, manage those people as well as the players, handle the media side of things, as you say, represent the club. But you don't really know until you give them the opportunity to. I mean, Carlton's tried it with Brendan Bolton and David Teague, and they both didn't work out. It is the most underestimated side of that senior role, isn't it? Because I always felt that if you hadn't have actually stepped away from Carlton when you decided to retire at the end of 2000 and had maintained that sort of, I'll deal with the media, I'll do the press conferences, you just do what you do best, Brits, because you're doing a bloody good job of it. If you had remained there, we may not have had the fall that we did in 2002. Again, with hypotheticals.
You don't know that, and neither do I.
No,
it's a hypothetical argument.
But you'd obviously felt like you'd had enough by that stage.
Oh, it's just...
We had a good year, 2000.
I think
13 wins in a row.
Let's get the bigger picture stuff. The bigger picture stuff would say to me what the Geelong coach is now doing is unbelievable.
Yeah.
If you're a smart coach with success and you've got somewhere between 8 and 10 years, even if things are going well, and then you ought to know that, and it's time for you to go somewhere else and repeat it, or give your job to somebody else, because it is the no. People don't know until you don't know it. You don't know it.
No.
I only half know it because the job's different now than it was. the most demanding job in Australian sporting society
Mm.
is coaching an AFL club.
Carlton's 2022. How do you feel about the club this year
club,
and how we
the club, I
performed
think
versus...
they're getting themselves together.
We know we've had 20 years of
still about
suffering.
4 or 5 genuine players short of what you need. History would say you need somewhere between 28 and 31 competent players because you're going to lose with injury and suspension and all those sort of things. So it's almost, that's why Geelong, you know, I agree with you, but Geelong have the greatest depth in terms of covering blokes at the moment who we would have thought were essential in our team.
Oh, there was one other thing I forgot to mention about that. Look at how many Geelong blokes are 30, 31, 32, same as us. Kernahan, Bradley,
You need
all of those guys were 32.
Pretty hungry to finish on the
Yeah,
right.
they want a flag before they finish up.
I would agree with you. I think Geelong are...
But Carlton,
They haven't done it yet, but I think all of the writing's on the wall.
Geelong will probably play Melbourne in the grand final.
Yeah.
It should be a ripping.
So Carlton on the right track, you think?
They're on the right track. They've got a great coach and panel that support staff. I'm not sure about the medical. I don't know enough about it to know how well they're supporting their players in psychological and physical things. I don't know about that, but they're just short of the depth of talent. There are players that are getting players are getting a game now.
We've got a couple of good leaders there.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think they're getting better in that regard. The leadership side. So I'm very positive about the next couple of years. I think they could win a flag in 2
I think they can give this house a chance anyway.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's good to hear from the...
Well, hang on, just before we finish.
I'm a long way removed from the reality
You
of
still
it.
watch some... You still watch a lot of footy, or...?
Yeah, no, I watch it, but I mainly would have been sitting here this afternoon watching it on television, but as I'm talking to you two blokes, I missed out on 2 games. So.
Yeah. Don't worry, the main game is tomorrow.
I'll try and go around the camera. David?
Oh, I think so.
We haven't got candles today, unfortunately.
No, I'm
but
embarrassed about
there's a card, and there's a lovely birthday cake for you and your lovely partner Gail to enjoy, and your family if you want
It'll be eaten before she gets back. That's very kind of you. Thanks.
It's fantastic that you've allowed us to come into your home and do this interview, and we wish you all the best for your 80th as it's coming up in the next couple of weeks. And thanks so much once again for joining us today on the Jumper Punch. And of course, once you've been on the Jumper Punch.
Wow, you are. You've got premierships, you've been awarded the Medal of Australianism, but now you are a legend of the Jumper Punch. It's like, we'll put that on the CV.
I think I've been very lucky with my life, full stop. I don't, if I die tomorrow, I'll die happy because I've been involved in things that I've really enjoyed.
You have, and if anyone can do, live their life doing something they love, not many people get to do that. So,
and it's so sad that people go through life going to work every day, hating every minute of it. They're going to live their life with that kind of, and I just don't get that. At the moment, I got to the point where I'm probably the same, that I don't want to be here or do something. Well, I'll even withdraw from that, even though I have nothing else to go to. But this will force me to go down that track. So, and it's easy for me to say it because I've been blessed with good parentage and good education and all those sorts of things. But you can make a good fist in this life. You can by being dedicated to something which you love. And you can influence other people. So
the hardest thing, I think, the easiest thing to do in life is do nothing. And the hardest thing is to get out there and outside of your comfort zone and do it. So people go like, oh, you say you were lucky, but I think the harder you work, the luckier you get.
That is absolutely true.
Yeah,
and I agree with that wholeheartedly. So thanks for recognising, mate. If I'm trying to forget it, but
well, Parker, you've been an ornament to the game, a legend of the Carlton Football Club, our coach of the century in the 20th century, and with 3 flags, we'll never forget the name David Parkin for as long as we live.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you both of you for taking the time.
And let's do the usual finish, Rocco. Go Blues!